Every time technology makes that you have to retrain people. But every time you never have to doubt and for a second that you have to embrace the latest technology, because you go never back. You have only one way. It is forward. And so that's what we try to do at Heineken too.
SparkOptimus exists 10 years. And for the last 5 years, we've been working together with Heineken on their digital transformation. Jean-François van Boxmeer has been CEO of Heineken for the last 15 years. And he stepped down over 6 months ago. What an honor to speak with you, Jean-François. Welcome.
Thank you, Alexandra. Nice to be with you.
Yes, well.
Albeit at a distance.
Yes, it is a bit of a distance. Well, let's see when we can just sit together again. I have my first question. Of course, you were with Heineken for a long time selling beer. So why was it logical for you to also think about digital?
Yeah, it was, as you said, fairly logical, because you quickly realize that digital is only one channel more to communicate, to sell, communicate internally, externally, and also sell to your clients. That is what we realized. And so it's a natural evolution of society. It's not for us a revolution, but it's certainly a very strong evolution. And if we look back of how digital entered, of course, it was first and foremost into our office life and administrative life. It's the way you build clients. The whole ERP systems were invented a long time ago. So digital is a very kind of loose concept. But I think it went in three steps. The first one was the automation of all the administrative tasks. The second step was communication. I think it revolutionized the way we communicated with our end customer, which is the consumer. Instead of hanging out with billboards and pre-formatted movies, we were kind of entering a direct dialogue with people. And that was quite a revolutionary thing to do. But that happened already, I would guess, with Facebook popping up. What was that, 15 years ago? So it's not so long ago. And then the last mile would be the online trading of things, which is a new channel for us. So all three things happened over a period, but it's just a continuation of using new technologies to our advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Heineken has a long tradition in that, no? In focusing on innovation and using the available technologies or the available inventions to improve stuff.
Yeah, we can go back to the 19th century, and brewing lager beers were something which was innovative. It was invented by the Czechs a long time ago, but it could only be produced in wintertime, because the fermentation process to make a lager beer or a Pilsner beer is only possible when the temperature stays well below 20 degrees. So they could only make it in the winter. And it's really with the invention of the cooling compressor in the second half of the 19th century that you could industrialize the process the whole year long. And if you look back at our founder here at Adriaan Heineken, he was keen to adopt that new process and that new technology. Back then, it was very revolutionary. So he imported the machines from Germany, the cooling compressors from Germany, and he imported also the brewers of Germany who could make that type of beer, and he also imported the kind of how do you call it, yeast that was used to ferment that beer, and he was the first to do it in the Netherlands, and it was quite innovative. And in those years, the ones who were the first, they took the market. And that's exactly what he was doing. And afterwards, his father always perfected the techniques to make a very good quality beer and make it stable through time so that we could export it. And Heineken, after all, developed because it made a superior product that could travel overseas and hold its freshness for quite a long time. And so being exported overseas, all over the world, and get a premium out of it. So that was innovative. So I would say innovation is in the DNA of the company. Beer, it's all about the taste, the refreshment, and bringing people together ultimately. And so digital is a means to still bring our trade, if you will, our traditional trade, one step forward.
And what do you think, what type of leadership have you shown, I think, in the last 5 years that we've been working together, to really bring a new topic like digital forward?
Well, it's the realization, we were very much on the outlook. We were at the stage where we were very well exploiting the digital world to build the brand. But we realized that we were not exploiting it to sell the brand, if you will. How can we exploit these new technologies to improve our sales capacities? And that's where we realized that we would have to take a step forward. And the way we went about it, it was a little bit kind of, we started to have the discussion in the executive team, as a team, a conversation, what can we do? We booked ourselves into Silicon Valley. I know it's very classic, it's perhaps a little bit cliche, but during our visits, we continued to speak about what we could do. And then we returned and we said, what can we do? And we chose not for an approach of a big bang, but for developing initiatives that could immediately make sense, bring business, and being examples for the whole organization of what the new possibilities are with these new technologies. And so it requires for that your executive team is very well aligned, understands, is equally passionate and fired up to do it. And then you have to, of course, positively infect the rest of your organization as step 2. And for doing that, you have to develop initiatives not at the center, but you have to develop initiatives in the business. That is what is important, where people realize in a country that by developing XYZ system and deploying XYZ technology, it really improves their life, but also their performance.
And as a CEO, maybe also for other CEOs who are on this transformation journey, you say, okay, we all got inspired, the executive team needs to be aligned, you really need to do initiatives in the countries. What else could you say in terms of inspiration for other CEOs who, you can be quite lonely on this journey, I guess, or, it needs a vision, it needs stamina, I don't know.
Well, I think when you say to an organization, we go more digital, naturally people will cheer you up because it's just, we are surrounded with it in our daily life. So that is not the difficult call to make. Everybody sees we have to go there where the whole world is going. Now comes the real issue is when you got a problem, because it's a process where you have to accept that you make errors. And big organizations like Heineken are used to flawless planning and execution and don't know how to deal with problems along the way. So it's developing the adaptive capacities when things don't work out, to take a step back to saying it's not a problem. If it doesn't work that way, we try another way. So installing that kind of mental agility of how to deal with something that you cannot plan in advance totally towards an outcome. You have to have a direction, but you cannot plan the exact outcome. And you have to deal with that and to be able to live with that. That is, I think, as an organization, what you have to learn. And as leadership, you have to show tolerance for failure more than ever, I would say. And then you have to have a lot of resilience and tolerance for failure, and knowing that perhaps in the beginning is the period where you will pay a hefty price for little success. If you pull the plug too early, you would forgo gigantic opportunities, maybe. But it's also to know where it really doesn't work and to just exit totally a project. Learning that is quite difficult, and you have to show a certain degree of calmness in the organization, and also looking at facts rather than getting emotionally infected when things go wrong. If you see what I mean. So that's a little bit I would say the crucial thing in deploying that, and it's also important to capitalize on the learnings. It is important that you get the learnings also from your mistakes, and that you know what to do and what not to do, and not repeat the same mistake. So you have to create, people call it an ecosystem, but the way you work about it, it has to be a very open book, how you progress. Transparency is really required doing that. And so people should have an environment to work where they feel safe. And in a large organization, to tell the truth, we have chosen also at Heineken at an approach to some initiatives were really developed at arm's length from the group, rather than within the group, because we thought that if we would integrate it too soon, the natural inertia that you have in a big group would have killed, or at least made the deployment of these and the development of these initiatives a bit difficult. So, yeah, that's more or less what we did.
No, and I think we've also seen that on the ground for the last years that you did that. And that is all, I think, also part of the fact that you also have a longer term vision as a company.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And the vision, again, the vision is how you deploy as a brewing company and a leading brewing company, but it's how you deploy your product portfolio, but how you deploy also your approaches to client and customers and consumers. And that's in constant evolution. And I think the product evolves, obviously, in a very slow pace, and society evolves a bit more quicker. And you have always to find the right adequation between these two speeds. And with digital, you had a noticeable acceleration of habits of people and the technologies they were using in daily life. And you have to weather that through. When I started in 1984, and I did my duty as a sales rep in the organization, and you were calling on individual clients, and it was important to develop a personal relationship with them, knowing who they were, the name of their wives, their children, the dog, where they went to holidays. That personal contact was very important to set a conducive, good atmosphere to conduct business and develop a business relation with that person. Now, fast forward to the grandson of that owner of a pub, and he would still be in pubs. He would be a lot less interested by my visit talking about his dogs and his last holidays, but he would be a lot more interested in if we would offer him a digital environment where he can quickly make his own choices, where he can also have a look into other things than just only my kind of category of products, if I can help him with things like showing him the way around, where he find the best architects, the best kitchen fitters in the country, and that kind of stuff. It's very important to create a larger universe than only the one of your product. And if you can give a tool and a digital tool, because today people consult themselves. They're all on the screens. So they do a lot of the work themselves. But you have also to create the environment where they quickly and easily can find the solution for their problem. So in a way, what you do is still the same fundamental steps of looking what is adding value to your customers. At the end, it's only the means that change over time.
Exactly. I love it also how you refer back to your own time as a sales rep and now the grandson of that sales rep. I completely agree with you that those needs are different now. And before we get to some initiatives that we did together in several of the countries, I would like to step back because we also supported you in drafting the commercial digital strategy. And we did that on one hand together centrally with the executive team, and then also we visited 10 operating companies. So why did you choose that method?
That's obvious. Heineken is a fairly decentralized company. And why is that? Because we operate everywhere across the world, and we have one brand that unites us all, and that is Heineken, because that's sold all over the world. But mind you, Heineken is only 15% of the volume that we sell. It's a lot more of the profits, but it's 15% of the volume that we sell. It grows faster than the rest, which makes us a special company with the Heineken brand. But next to the Heineken brand, we have another 350 local brands, beer, but also cider and sometimes non-alcoholic products. And when you visit all the 80 plus countries in which we operate with own production sites and the whole supply chain, those are very local operations. And so the best way is to devolve the power to run this to the local management. And so that's why I'm saying we are a fairly decentralized company. Now, there are a number of, we are stronger as a group because we must be clear about what do you do locally and what you do centrally, because there is also a lot to be gained to do things centrally. Think about purchasing and IT stuff and all that jazz. When it comes to digital deployment, it is new, so it has to work and for an operation company, and you have to create the environment where other people can look in the kitchen of the company where you develop an initiative, so that they can get excited and not reinvent the wheel on their part. So that is the whole ecosystem that you have to create. So you have to have a vision that you have in the executive team, which is going in one direction. You have to be all crystal clear, everybody behind. I think that top management has to realize it costs money. You will come across flaws, but you have to believe that ultimately you will find a few nuggets that when you will scale them up across all these operations, you will make indeed a difference. But you have to start deploying it in the operations, not in the head office, because you don't sell beer in a head office. So that's a little bit how we have chosen to work.
Yeah, and I think very successfully. And we were also then able, based on the strategy, to help on the ground around the world with the execution. As you said, also the way that Heineken did it, to really start with initiatives on the ground. So that's also what we did. We supported both, to serve your business-to-business customers better, but also to help your teams on the ground in a new way of working. So I wanted to talk about two markets out of all the markets where we helped. And the first one is Mexico, where, of course, you sell directly to your customers. How could we support there? What type of initiatives were done there?
You had in effect, if I recall well, two initiatives, because mind you, I retired from Heineken, so you were speaking to a pensionado of Heineken, not anymore. So there were two things. There was the first development was around, if I recall well, a digital app that we were giving to our customers. Customers typically in Mexico are pop-mom shops, small shops, and they are visited once or twice a week by a sales rep, and he would take up the order, and then he got delivered by our trucks. You can complement the sales rep with an app where they can also order directly themselves. That is what was developed in the first place. It exists now in a lot of countries, but Mexico is very big for us, so it was kind of a big deployment. It's an addition to the sales rep. It's not a total replacement of it, but it's offering that extra kind of feature, because again, as the world moves on, and they're also digital savvy in Mexico. Everybody has also a smartphone. People will find it easier to handle the thing online than having to wait for the sales rep to come. So we adapted to that. That's one of the applications. And the second one was and that was more a people thing rather than a technology development. It was called, if I recall well, City Labs. And it was, and in fact, that it's the correct approach to do. It is to go at grassroots instead of plotting with the management team what do we need as further digital deployments. It's rather sitting down with district sales reps and saying, what is it really that we could do differently to sell more and have a better service to our customer, to have a more satisfied customer. And so you will sit around and you make, therefore it's called City Labs, people gather around and then they come with examples of their daily life. And I think SparkOptimus helped in that, in recognizing the patterns, because a sales rep always comes with his particular kind of example, right? And you have to recognize in all these examples what a pattern is. And then out of that pattern, you can see if you can develop a solution which is digitally enabled and which will help these sales reps very effectively and the customer very effectively. And if I look back, and it's only an example, but one of the examples was the fridges. Now, Mexico is a hot country, so you have to sell the beer cooled. People buy it on the go, and they buy it cooled. So we deploy a lot of fridges. The brewery deploys thousands and thousands of fridges. It's a business in itself. Equipment of fridges in the point of sales. Now, what is important? It is not that a sales rep come in at 2:00 in the afternoon and sees that the fridge is either not working or is not well replenished, or the price tags are in the wrong order. So you better do it before you open the shop. Now, the only way to do it is online. And then you have to deploy a photographic recognition technology. People make their own little photo, they send it. People are being sent a feedback from the sales rep on the WhatsApp how to do. Eventually, the client would be delivered extra more if needed. Very concrete things. Then the next step will be to automate that thing a little bit further. Of course, it's a dream to start immediately with the perfect system, wholly automated. But I think the beauty of collaboration with SparkOptimus is always to reach milestones that are delivering already additional business, and that have that open opportunity to still build improvements further on. I think that has been the great thing about City Labs in Mexico. At least the Mexican operation was very enthusiastic about it, and it was wholly embraced by that operation.
No, that's great to hear. No, but also I liked that it also, I think, fitted with the Heineken no-nonsense approach to say, okay, we first see with our own salespeople whether it proves value for the customer, exactly as you say, and whether it proves value for the business. We make the milestone, then we automate it, and then maybe one step further when you think, okay, if we're really gonna do this large scale with all these pictures of these fridges, then you might want to use artificial intelligence to process those type of amount of data. But it's not...
You don't start with it.
You don't start with it.
No, you don't start with it. And I think if you really look at it, digital, it's I don't know what the percentage is, but it's majority people change and minority real technology, what technology brings. I don't know, in some cases 80-20, 80 people, 20 technology. In some cases a little bit more technology. But practically all the cases, you are only successful if you address the people component, that people understand how the thing works, that you make them part of it working. And that requires a lot of time, because most of the people in management positions, they understand conceptually how all this works, but it has to work very practically for the people who handle it, for the thousands of people who handle it every day. And if it is not proved by practice, then it's useless. And I think that is, when you refer to our no-nonsense approach, it's essentially that it has to be practice-proofed. And we live in a time where you hear a lot of things about digitalization, and people start with speaking about we're going to create a data lake. And then my question would be, what for? So I think it's always putting the things in the right order.
Yeah, and I think also what you already said before is that also when someone on the ground, like one of the salespeople, needs to work with it, they also need to see the benefits for themselves, because then they will be more actively using it.
No, it's embracing the thing.
Yeah.
They have to see it works better than my old way of working, and if I can be rewarded for it, whether it's monetary reward, but also just the reward of seeing your work progressing. I think don't underestimate how potent that is when a sales rep receives a compliment from his customer. We work not only to feed our families, we will work also for our personal pride at all levels.
Exactly. Yeah, I completely agree. And great if digital can help. This is the end. Now, I would like to also talk about another market where we support it, that is South Africa. And of course, that is it is another situation. It's a relatively young operating company. They can be a challenger. You have a more indirect route to market there. There's distributors between you and the customer. So Heineken does not know much about the customer. How were we able to help you there? What initiatives did you do in South Africa?
In South Africa, it has been a little bit of serendipity, I have to say. And it's a bit the opportunity that created the strategy, if I'm perfectly honest. We came across a startup which is called Touchstones, and which has been developing what in effect is a cash register machine for a sales outlet, but allowing more than that. It also allows an ordering function towards the supplier. It offers also analysis function of the different categories of the products and the competitive field you're in. And it offers also a possibility to organize promotions with it, loyalty cards with specific promotions, all from one, if you will. It looks like a cash register, a bit modern, a bit sturdy also, and connected wireless. And that was invented by these people. And so you could imagine South Africa is a market where small trade is still very dominant. And logistics, it is what it is in South Africa. It's good. It's far better than in many other African countries, but still, it's very dispersed. It's a vast country. And here you have something for a challenger that Heineken is in South Africa, with a market share back then of only 10%, growing, but we came really from a very small market share. To grow that, we would need, in a very vast country, a number of sales reps to do the intelligence work, it doesn't make economic sense. And here comes TouchSide's technology, where you have an active electronic sales rep, if you will. And that is the opportunity we saw in that Touchstones, because you could install the machine in many more outlets than you could regularly visit. And that device could make the market intelligence that normally you would do with human beings, if you will. And that was the very big discovery. Second thing is, you could read the markets, you could read patterns of consumptions in a weekly basis. When is that the people go out? When is that the people go and shop and bring home? You could see that all in real time and organize your business for that, and tailor-made promotions, offerings of products, but also your delivery hours to the patterns of real consumption. That was the big deal about Touchstones. Now, the founders of Touchstone wanted, like often with startups, they wanted to cash out, but also stay in, because they were very interested to see how we could develop this technology further in practice, scale it up, and use it in other countries. This is where also SparkOptimus came in, because scaling that up and taking over, because we effectively bought out Touchstones and TouchSide, sorry, and Yeah, I always made that mistake, and they made a big laugh out of me at Heineken because I was continuing saying touch stones, and it is touch sites. But anyhow, we bought out a technology company. It's not our turf, and so it's where the help of SparkOptimus to keep everybody honest in the process was very important, and creating that practical link to our business. Because you had seen, it's not your first experience at SparkOptimus with us in South Africa. You had earlier experience with us, and so you helped us in deploying that, and also to have a look in other African countries. It's still what I believe, because I left 6 months ago. It is still in its early days to declare this technology a absolute winner. But there are enough elements that you can build on for the future, which are extremely valuable. And you have also, again, crossover spillings, because all markets where sales are predominantly done through small sized stores, you can use that kind of solutions and technology to do a better job. So yeah. That was a bit our South Africa adventure too.
Exactly, and I think also there what you say, you could get a lot of data out of all these cash registers at the small stores. And I think it was also a lot about helping really on the ground the salespeople with using these data to make better offers. I think that was also part of it, the really way of working. Yeah.
Again, it's the thing about training the people how to use the technology. It is that, because deploying the technology is a matter of money. It's how many machines and placing the machines. And on the other hand, it is to learn to sales rep to retrain themselves how to work with that, because they have to work from data and not directly from information they gather in an oral way from the customer, but rather through a totally automated thing. They got all what they need in advance, and they have to, again, you have to train them to recognize patterns and to do something with it. And it's a lot of training, I have to say.
Yeah.
But I would say we have in the sales field organization in Heineken the same kind of evolution that we had in the supply chain 20 years earlier. The whole automation and digitalization that we see now coming in and coming up in the sales process is what a company like Heineken had rather in the beginning of the century, from, I would say, 1990 on till 2010. Those were the 20 years where the whole production process, the supply chain of Heineken, went from a traditional way to the 4.0 kind of technologies. And if you look at the people who work in the brewery, what we call operators, they are an entirely different breed of people than the ones they were. And again, when I started in 1984, we were 15 at the production line that was making 15,000 bottles an hour. Now you have 5 people for a double line of 80,000 bottles an hour. But if you look at the equipment of today, it's entirely automatic. So the people who are the operators, they have to be trained for that kind of devices. And a bottling line of 2 times 80,000 costs the price of a jet airplane. It's not a free thing, right? It's a very expensive piece of equipment. And the way you're going to drive it requires a level of technical skills, which most of the people didn't have 30 years before. I think for sales rep, it's a bit the same kind of evolution. It's a big human retraining that is required to make sales as an activity in our company, digitally powered by digital technologies, effective and a winning tool for us. That's the revolution we're in.
Exactly. And I think
strong evolution we're in. Yeah. It's a strong evolution. It takes years, but you have to do it, very consistently, like we did it in the supply chain. It's fairly similar to what we have seen before.
I think it's a very good comparison, actually.
And the same goes for finance activities. that went even earlier than the supply chain. I remember in my first brewery in Africa where they were still doing the accounting manually in books with calc paper. I don't know how you call it in English, but it is
to copy or what?
Yeah, with a carbon copy.
Yeah,
and that was still. You have to realize in the 1980s it was still around there. So you had also to retrain people every time. Technology makes that you have to retrain people, but every time you never have to doubt and for a second that you have to embrace the latest technology, because you go never back. You have only one way. It is forward, and so that's what we try to do at Heineken too.
Yeah, absolutely, and we've seen that up close. So you are actually doing it. And now, on another topic where we support it, next to the B2B serving of customers, is we supported you on the e-commerce platform Beerwulf, direct e-commerce to consumers. That was a completely new thing. So what was the idea behind starting that, and also what kind of decisions did you have to take along the way?
Yeah, very exciting. It's one of the few B2C that we developed, because in our business, the B2B, as you call it, is the bulk of what we have to do. I mean, it's 90%. The B2C, it worked for Beerwulf because the idea was people have a big interest for craft beers, and the world of craft beers, it's a world similar to the wine world. You have a lot of varieties, a lot of little stories to be told, a lot of people using different ingredients. You have an infinite variety of products. And since, I would say, 10 to 15 years, 30 years already in America, 10 to 15 years here in Europe, you see a generation of people having an increased interest for these special products. Now, you can either build a store where you put a lot of craft beers together, or you can do it to do a digital store, and that's what we did. In effect, the approach was not revolutionary. We were not the first one to do it, but we were certainly the first big brewer to do it. And we have chosen, and again, that this has nothing to do with technology, we have chosen to offer all products to be an open system. So not particularly favoring our own special beers. We have them, but they are a strict minority in the portfolio that we offer through Beerwulf. It's a lot more products from everybody else. And I think it's also important that you keep that openness and that you don't try to be cute and start to too much advertise. If you choose one competitor's product to come in with an algorithm who says, oh, I have more or less the same, won't you buy this one? Because then your competitors, they will say they're cheating us, and they will go away. So it only works if you are able to operate it as a platform, and the business is that platform. It's not us as Heineken brewer. It's us as a big international a big European online shop of all the specialties that you can find in Europe. And that's how conceptually it was engineered. And there again, we did the little step approach. We started in the Netherlands, deploying the concept and seeing whether that was getting traction. And then we went on to other countries, the neighbors, the France and Belgium and then the UK. And then and we are now in 10 countries, keeping that architecture. Of course, the portfolio of the products we offer varies from one country to another, because otherwise it would be a bit difficult to handle. Beyond that, the logistical machine that you have to organize has to be flawless, and it's economically viable, because special beers, small series but high prices, it's like wine, and so you can pay for the last mile for the individual transportation of a box, whether for big brands like Amstel or Heineken, the economics don't work out. You better go to your Albert Heijn and shopping your crate of beer. So But for special beers that you don't find otherwise, Beerwulf is the place to go. We developed it as an arm's length from Heineken, totally independent. We choose a manager from Heineken, a very experienced, at that time, he was a young man, Hans Berg, he's still a young man, but, and he had a wide commercial experience. He had worked in foreign countries and also sometimes difficult countries like Egypt. One of his stints, but we took really a top-notch guy, if you will, and a guy with a lot of entrepreneurial experience. If you want to, survive in an environment like Egypt, you are by nature an entrepreneur. Otherwise, you don't survive there. So this kind of profile of people who, with their background and experience, are open-minded, are entrepreneurial, and you give them a kind of a freedom to set up a team and also recruit the people they need, because the people you need for doing such a business, you won't find them at Heineken. So that's how it is now. SparkOptimus also supported this business, and I have to say I visited it a few times, and what I discovered there, again, it's a bit about technology, but it's a lot about human organization. And you go on a site, and that site is always perfectioned, but the way you do it in the beginning, it's not artificial intelligence. It's just post-its on a big wall every morning of people who say, well, this works and this doesn't work. This product is in high demand. This promotion works. These regions love this kind of product. And so you start to tailor it just because of observations. When data analytics is a big word, but it starts with observations of patterns and exploiting these patterns. Now, the first flow of it is often just done manually. And then you start to automate them. That's what are called these algorithms. That's only that. And I've seen that at work and growing in Beerwulf. But in the beginning, it was like a kitchen shop, It was incredibly... People at the mother Heineken would have called it very unprofessional, if you would, which is because it looked like a very disorganized, messy, people shouting everywhere, and like, are they really working or are they having fun? I tell you, they work really hard, and I have to say that there were a little stops and goes, and we altered the business model. Some things didn't work, and we had to redraw that. The whole logistics had to be reconsidered. We considered also putting our beer tender systems and the sub these cartridges sales to put that into Beerwulf, and so you have always to. Entrepreneurship is always accepting also that you're never reaching an endpoint. It's going to be a perpetual evolution. And Beerwulf has been doing that quite well. And I have to say that I would say that our site founder was Hans Berg, and he did a marvelous job.
Marvelous, yeah.
He did a marvelous job. He's now running the Netherlands in our empire, which is a big position. The Netherlands is still a big market for us. So he's now relieved of that function. But this is an example of a B2C that worked quite well. We have developed a lot of other things B2C that we had to stop. They didn't work. In the Netherlands, we developed cool beer delivering at home, like Uber Eats. It's very funny. People like it. But if you want to lose money, just continue that. There is no end to it. Exactly. Because I think digital commerce is very exciting. There are a lot of stories going around, but there are also a lot of graveyards. And so we have to be cognizant of the law of statistics when you are in our business. At the end of the day, you transport something which is relatively inexpensive and weighs a lot. So the logistics in it are the leading driver, how you have to organize. And you can't deny the laws of gravity in our business, if you will. And as long as you keep doing that, I think that digital solutions can really add channels to it. But again, I stress that, and I'm a user of Beerwulf. As a consumer, I use Beerwulf, so I'm very happy with it. But the big benefit for Heineken going forward in digitalization is certainly in B2B and in market intelligence, and in the way you approach your consumer, and in all kinds of management services that you can offer to your clients in order to improve their return on sales too. It's not only improving our return, but it's also improving the return of our customers, because that makes us a credible B2B partner at the end of the day, if you will. And that is where we should put our money almost in this.
No, I agree. And next to that, what I also really liked about our whole Beerwulf experience with you from idea to launch is that you also embraced all the best practice principles of a venture like this. Like, for once, doing it out of a business reason, an attractive, fast-growing market where you just want to play, but then also putting it at arm's length, being really open and transparent, which is very difficult for loads of boards and CEO to really do that. But I agree with you, it's the only way. But then also putting someone in charge who is, as you said, top-notch, very experienced, and not putting an intern or someone, that almost leaves the company anyway, and then say, okay, we have a venture, we just put someone like that on top of it. But also it proves, because I think sometimes there's also reluctance of people within companies to go to the digital side or to digital ventures because they're afraid that their career will be over afterwards. Right. And I think Hans proves that your career is not over afterwards.
Yeah, but that's an important thing. Huh? You have to put your money where your mouth is. That's not only the money itself, it's also how you deal with the people who go in these kind of things. You can't say, I find digital important, and then after such a mission, that person would not make a big step in his career. And it was a big step, because Beerwulf was important. When he was running Beerwulf, it was clearly, if you looked at his rank and files in the corporation, he was a heavyweight for such a small company when he started. But when he left, he went for even a much more bigger job. And when people realize, okay, if you go there, I got that lesson when I started my career in Africa. Now, it was very difficult to get out of Africa because you were not career worthy having worked in Africa, because it was deconsidered. It was kind of nice, but not relevant. That has changed with one of my predecessor, Karel Vuursteen, when he was a CEO. He was very adamant to give us a follow-up on our career. We were a few ones, and I'm saying a few ones, that worked in Africa and had good careers afterwards. René of Graafland, who, he was the CFO of the company, myself, Mark Bolland, we a few, and today, even Dolf van der Brink. But if you look at Africa today, it's a real business, and it's a big business, and it's a growing business in Heineken if you consider the last 20 years. So I think it goes what we did geographically. I think if you go to Central Eastern Europe, you're going to make career. Where people thought when we were buying Eastern Europe, it's second class kind of postings. We don't go there. It was London, New York, Paris, the kind of career path, and not Lagos, Warsaw, Shanghai or Jakarta. And for, I think, digital initiatives and new business models developed in digital, it goes the same way. If you're serious, you have also to show that people who work there and had results with it, they got promoted.
Yeah,
it's easy as that.
Yeah, no, I think that was also very important.
It's not specific to digital. It's specific if we branch out of beer to go into cider. As long as you don't have people who have been good at selling cider, making career further in Heineken, cider will never develop. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. It's common sense in a way.
Yeah. Now, as I'm really enjoyed our conversation, I have to say, and I have to say also as a last embarrassing question, of course. Now that you're not CEO anymore, as you already said, you can be honest about, of course, the cooperation with us. So how would you say we are different? I think you already said once or twice in your answers, parts of it.
Awful. We have to stop immediately. No, you can cut that one, right? No.
No, we're gonna make that the main line. Jean-François thought it was awful to work with SparkOptimus.
No. Yeah. But asking the questions, no, I think it was. You were not my pick as CEO in this case. I would like to defer the honor to Jan-Dirk van Karnebeek, who knew you and who took you under the tent. And I think he was very intelligent, politically intelligent, to introduce your company into the full-fledged management team, so that everybody from Asia to America, from Africa to Europe, from public relations in our company to the people who are busy with sustainability and the finance, everybody around the table can see what is that we want to do and what is the role of the consultant, that external person who's going to help us, or company that's going to help us. And I think you did a very great job to also walk us through what was in front, what the pitfalls were. All that educational work was done at the executive team level several times. So it's not that you appeared once and then you worked with the operating companies. No, you came back and did reporting. So I think it worked well, our collaboration, because there was that constant feedback loop, which was organized not only at the operational side, but also at the strategic side at the table of the entire executive team. This is what made our collaboration, I think, special and a bit more than you would usually think it is. And then on the ground, I think you have the same practical approach that we like to see. You're not selling ground plans. You are forcing us to take a stance of where we want to go, and not telling us this is where you should go, because then you're just blindly following something. You, I think, excel in the art to make sure that your client is putting its own goal, and then you take them, your clients, us, by the hand to go there. And I think patience is one of your great qualities. And I think you are very much focused to the practicalities of it. And so you go beyond the conceptual selling points and go in the practical organization of things. You have a network of also suppliers who can arrange the technological side. But I think you are a great company to assemble the journey for a company like us. And that is the adventure that, at least on my side, I've been enjoying.
Thank you so much. We have been enjoying it as well in a major way. Actually, it is really true. You've, of course, been a great client for us in the last 5 years. But to be honest, the Sparkies, as we call them, were also really enthusiastic about Heineken, because they really, they didn't stop.
Like the product.
Sorry? No.
Like the product.
We like the product for sure. I'm sure you've seen that in all the countries where we've worked, drinking beers with your people. No, but also it is putting your money where your mouth is, also what you say. Once you decide you want to continue on this road with all the difficult steps needed, you just go on, you just go on. And we see loads of companies who don't do that. So we were also really a fan because we could make that impact. And as you said, in every milestone, because we had to prove the value every time, and then it would go up to the ET, but then we could continue again, with the local people who were then also very enthusiastic. So it's been a great adventure from both sides. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexandra.
And really thank you for this conversation. It's really very nice that during these interesting times we could Zoom together and talk about this adventure. So thank you.
Thank you. All the best to all the Sparkies.